Hey everybody, good evening. I think I'm live. I usually stream with StreamYard, and I couldn't figure out how to do it. Facebook has changed their the way they do things and their permissions, and so anyway, hopefully you can see and hear me. I'm gonna pull it up on my phone, do a little tech check, and make sure I'm streaming. All right. So if you're jumping on live, okay, I can see me. Yes. So if you're jumping on live, say hi in the chat. Let me know you're tuning in. Uh, and if you're watching the replay, let me know that as well. We're going to dive into a pretty interesting topic tonight. We're going to talk about problem solving. Some steps that you can use to solve problems. When you have ADHD, sometimes problem solving is hard. And even if you don't have ADHD, problem solving can be hard. So, um, again, if you are jumping on live, let me know, say hi in the chat, and we're going to talk about problem solving. So, if you don't have any problems or you don't anticipate having any problems in the next few weeks, you don't have to listen to this. I'm just kidding. Everybody has problems, right? So, you know, having ADHD, there's so many different ways that problem solving is hard for adults with ADHD. And, I'm going to share some workarounds for some of these challenges. And we're going to look at how you can better handle adversity, because it's going to happen. If you don't have any problems now, you probably are just coming out of a problem, or you're about to go into one, right? So ADHD can get in the way of solving problems in several different ways. And understanding how your ADHD is affecting the problem solving, that's the first step when you think about how to handle adversity. Because once you recognize those challenges, then you can kind of apply that understanding in creating effective workarounds. And so, one challenge, and all of these are related to that prefrontal cortex, that executive functioning on our brain. And one challenge is that we become easily frustrated. Sometimes we even get downright angry when we're faced with a problem. And, I don't know exactly why that is, but it may be due in part to challenges with emotional regulation, which is very common in people with ADHD. And so when you're in this heightened emotional state, you might not be able to really think clearly about solutions to problems. And another challenge, I guess you would say, of people with ADHD is, part of executive functioning in our brain is sequencing, like deciding what comes first, next, after that. And so we have difficulty organizing and sequencing steps, which is something that's a skill that you need for problem solving. So even if you approach the problem with this, order and calm and all that, then you may not be clear still about the steps that you need to take to solve the problem. Another challenge is we have trouble getting started on things. Initiating tasks is a very difficult thing for ADHD people. So activating or starting something is a struggle. And there are a lot of different reasons that people procrastinate or have trouble getting started. But one reason may be that you don't know how to start. You're not sure how to start. So, you may not have clarity about the very first step. And so that uncertainty keeps you stuck. And if you do manage to start, you may find it hard to keep going and be consistent and persist, with the necessary effort that you need to sustain to solve the problem. And that's especially true for adults with ADHD, when the problem is something that's not really interesting to them, if it's something boring or complicated, then we really have trouble sustaining interest long enough to get something started and continue it. So, you know, you might, I don't know, hyper focus on fixing something in your car, but then, you neglect to figure out what that weird noise is in your heater or what. I don't know. I'm just it's like you don't want to problem solve on something that isn't interesting to you, but you'll hyper focus on something else. That's my point. So there are a lot of other challenges. So those are just a few. And again, if you're watching live, let me know in the chat. I am I'm actually live, so this is not recorded, at least not in the free Facebook group. I may put this recording in some other places, but I'm going to share with you some steps that you can use to solve your problems. These steps I got from another ADHD coach, Marla Cummings, but I kind of put my own spin to it. And there are a lot more steps, but I'm going to try to boil it down to just a few. And the first is obviously you just have to realize that you're going to have problems. So just acceptance. Acceptance is the first step. Life is full of problems. Like I said, if you're not in a problem right now, you're just coming out of one, you're about to go into one. So I know, and I know you get that. You understand that life is full of problems. So I think that, when you make a choice, you need to also just realize and accept that that choice may come with some problems and anticipate that. When you do that up front, you can, it's almost like you expected it, so it doesn't throw you off so much. It minimizes the chances that you're going to be reactive or maybe avoid the problem altogether. So, like when you buy a house, that you're eventually going to have things go wrong or things that need to be fixed or replaced, or there's going to be maintenance. There's going to be problems. And, you get a new job, you're going to have to deal with that annoying colleague or difficult boss or difficult clients. I mean, that's just going to come probably. Even though both getting a new car and getting a new house and getting a new job are exciting, they're going to come with some problems. So, I think about having kids. I mean, your kids are great, right? But they're full of problems. Let's back it up a little bit. What about getting a puppy, right? They're so cute and fun, but they also chew up everything in your house, and there's just some problems. So how do you approach problems when they happen? Maybe you are not as calm as you would like to be. And I think we all want to be more level-headed and think logically when we have problems, right? So if you guys are watching live, say hi in the chat. I'm going to take a drink of water real quick. And I have to look on my phone. I'll have to go back and look later and see if there's some comments, because I can't see. But there used to be a bumper sticker that had like a bad word happens, stuff happens. But it does. It just happens. And so you have to be able to figure out how to deal with it when it comes up. And it would be great if everything were smooth all the time and you didn't have any problems. But you're going to need to have a solution-focused perspective and realize that problems will come and you're going to be okay and you can handle it. and have that confidence. So acceptance is the first step. Um, the second step is once you have acknowledged that problems are going to happen, is especially if you tend to be reactive, is just to learn to pause. Just pause. Sometimes I take a deep breath and I even say to myself, okay, deep breath. And it's almost like a joke, but I'm not really joking. When I feel this stress come, I just do my hands like this. Okay, focus, deep breath. So, in other words, you set the problem aside and focus your energy elsewhere before going into like full out problem solving mode. You just collect your thoughts and take a deep breath. And it might be, if it's a problem that can wait, you might even want to take a day or even a week, or maybe you take an hour or whatever amount of time seems reasonable given the problem that you're facing. Because it's hard to come up with creative solutions when you're all in like reactive mode, right? And obviously, not all problems can wait. They're not going to all lend themselves to this strategy, but if you're uh, if you're living here in Memphis, where I am, in July or August, and your air conditioning breaks, um, you're going to figure out a way to get that thing fixed because it is really, really hot and humid here. If your car breaks down and you need to get to work, you're going to figure out how to fix it or how to get a ride to work. Um, you know, but if you're having uh, problems with the way something's done at work, or maybe a problem with a colleague, sometimes we don't feel that urgency with that. And you might let it sit for a few days. And then, you can really think through how you want to address the issue. So just learn to pause. And the third step is decide if it's a problem that you want to solve. One of the options when faced with a problem is to just accept the situation rather than trying to change it. Like maybe you don't like it, but it's not, that saying, pick your battles. It's not worth trying to change it sometimes. And that may be the best strategy, um, especially when you really don't have any control over changing the situation. You decide, you don't want to spend the time or the energy necessary to change that, whatever's going on. So you just might choose to accept a situation as it is. And that doesn't mean that you like it or that you want it even to be that way, but it's just in as you think about your resources and time, you just decide, I'm going to let this one go, and maybe that's the best way to handle it. It just means that you're choosing to not to put your time and energy into trying to change it. Um, for example, if you have that annoying colleague, you may just choose to accept that that's their quirky personality rather than, fighting against it and spending all this emotional energy and time trying to change it. Um, not only does accepting people as they are save you time and energy, but it improves your relationships and your communication. So sometimes acceptance too can really help you when you're worrying about past choices, because you can't change the past. Um, and yes, you can decide to work on making different choices moving forward, but you may also decide to accept what is done. And that's the most important thing, is just accepting. Um, it's the most compassionate choice when you can't change what is, right? Where So think about that. Think about where could you practice acceptance rather than seeking out a solution to what seems like a problem. Where could you let go of wanting to change the situation or the person and just accept things as they are? And as you practice using acceptance as a means of addressing all your worries, then you're going to find peace. You're probably all familiar with the Serenity Prayer from the recovery community. Um, Dr. Hollowell, who's a ADHD psychologist, um, kind of had an adapted version of that prayer. And I'm going to pull it up here on my computer and read that for you. Um, it says, God grant me the serenity to accept the things I cannot change, the insight to prioritize wisely what I want to change, the patience to resist trying to control everything I could, had I the energy and time, the courage and skill to change the things I've chosen to change, and the wisdom to know the differences among all these. Sometimes the answer to your problems may be just a change in your perspective. So think about that. So your acceptance and then pause. Um, I mean, acknowledge and then pause and then acceptance. And then if you decide that you want to find a solution to your problem, the next step is just to remind yourself that it's a process. It is not a quick fix. A solution may not come easily, it may not come quickly. Um, I don't know if you're like me, but waiting is not my favorite. I am not what you would consider a patient person. So I don't know about you. If you're not a patient person, put that in the chat. A lot of ADHD people are not. They're not really good with waiting. Um, so it might not come easy for you because as an adult with ADHD, while you understand this, you may still want an immediate solution because that's the way we're wired. And when you can't find an immediate solution, you may just worry about the problem. And one thing we do with ADHD in our brains is we ruminate, which means we just mull over something and we turn it over and over, and it just goes into a negative spiral. Um, but while you're worrying about it and stewing over it, you may not take the steps necessary to figure out how to solve the problem because you're confused and you don't know what steps to take. And so maybe you decide, I don't have the time to figure this out. Um, it's too hard, or I think I'm going to fail. And so I don't see even the point in trying. Have you ever felt that way? So you tell yourself you're going to figure it out later when you're less overwhelmed. And that usually doesn't happen because, worrying about the problem still robs you of time and energy that you could have been using that time and energy to solve the problem. So time and energy could be spent on other things, right? Um, and it'd be great if we were all worry free all the time, but that's probably not realistic. But you could spend less time just like ruminating and worrying. So what if you could put your worry to work for you? What if you could actually start figuring out what's the first step to solving this problem? And I would say the next step is to ask for and accept help. And when you're trying to figure out a problem, you may need help. You may need help from a lot of different people. Um, you might maybe coworkers, friends, family members, an ADHD coach like me, who's maybe somebody who's good at solving the problem that you have or just solving problems in general. So, in the beginning, you're going to need to talk about your problem, maybe how you're feeling, kind of vent a little bit. Um, and that's especially true if it brings up a lot of emotions. That's totally normal. So take the time that you need. Don't shortchange yourself by trying to, force the solution too soon. And when you feel like you're in the right frame of mind to do the work, you can move on to the next step, which is finding the solution. And so you're going to want to find the right person to help you um, with those steps in that solution. Um, get somebody to help you think of the necessary steps. Create a timeline, like just an estimate of a timeline, and estimate and schedule the time that you're going to need for each step, and have accountability, troubleshoot when the plan doesn't work, and think of people who can hold you accountable and can check on you with those steps. Um, and be thinking now, even as you're listening to me talk, who would be somebody that could help me with that kind of stuff? Um, that's one of the things I love about my group coaching program, is that I can be there to be a sounding board for people who are sharing things they're struggling with. And then once you figure out the steps, you got to do it, right? Once you figured out people that can help you and your resources, um, collaborate with them and then do the work to solve the problem. Don't figure out the solution and then procrastinate about taking the first step. Because when you're ready to do this, you'll be able to stop focusing on what's wrong and focus on the next step. Focus on what you want to achieve. Take a solution-focused approach. So let's say you're at work and you've got a colleague who another coworker feels like she's not pulling her weight, right? And this person could ask questions like, what do you want to be happening instead of the problem? In other words, what do you want to achieve? And in this case, the person wants a fair workload, right? So secondly, they might want to write out what the solution would look like, include as much detail as possible. So this coworker and this other person it would mean that they agree on a fair distribution of tasks. They're going to meet each week. They're going to check in with each other to ensure that they're following through on commitments. Maybe they agree to negotiate down the road if either of them starts to feel like the workload's unfair. On and on. Write it down. And then always ask yourself, what is it about having this solution that's important to you? And like I said before, they want the workload to be fair. That's why it's important. They want to be able to spend more time doing things outside of work instead of feeling like they're having to pull the slack for the other person. How will you know if the solution's been reached? How will things be different when you arrive at the solution? On a scale of 1 to 10, what would a 10 look like when you have what you want, when you have the solution you want? And in this case, the workers might say, well, I could stop worrying about it for sure, and I'd feel better when I'm at work, and I'd be more productive. It's a 10 when we're both equally pulling our weight and following through on commitments and renegotiating when necessary. Outline the steps that you need to accomplish it. So maybe they would sit down and talk about how they're going to make that happen, that they make a list of all the tasks and break up who's going to do what, and email them and ask to meet, and then plan a follow-up meeting or whatever. There's so many different things, but you're working toward a solution, and that takes time and it takes effort. But so do the alternatives. Don't forget that. Being reactive, being emotional, worrying, avoiding, procrastinating, those take time and energy too. Why not take the time and energy to actually solve the problem? That's one thing to think about. So there's just a lot more we could say about that, but if you want help with your ADHD and you want to know how to actually work with the way that your brain is wired, then I encourage you to consider my group coaching program. It's called the Ultimate ADHD Success Blueprint. That's what we follow. It's a framework, step-by-step, that allows you to conquer the overwhelm and tap into your strengths, work with the way your brain is wired, and reach your goals. And so let me know in the chat if that's something you're interested in. And I hope you have a great rest of your Monday, and I hope you have a great week, and I'll see you next time. Bye.